What's up everybody? Today we're going to talk about one of the only mods that you need to know for custom mechanical keyboards. The force break mod. Alright, we've had our fun. Today we're going to talk about some keyboard modifications and focusing specifically on the force break mod and comparing it with others. Hello everyone, my name is Andy Nguyen. I like keyboards and I like tech, and I'm a nerd just like you all, so if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. This video is sponsored by keebsforall, and we're going to talk a little bit about the keebsforall market in a second, but let's get on with the video. The force break mod is what I consider a non-destructive modification because 1, it's easy to do, 2, it's easy to remove, and 3, you're not really changing the sound of a keyboard. To get everyone caught up to speed, in custom mechanical keyboards, typically we get cheaper keyboards and we can modify them because of the kind of tinkering nature of the hobby. We modify these cheaper keyboards to sound better because I know that not everyone has a lot of money to be able to buy a $500, $700, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 Janes. Not everyone has that kind of money to shell out for a keyboard that they use to talk smack on Discord. These modifications can really aid in someone with a lower budget that maybe has more time or maybe wants to tinker with the experiment of modifying a keyboard. So the modifications that we typically have, right when I started the hobby, one was called shelf liner or case foam. It's really easy. Shelf liner is the rubber material that you put on shelves so that your plates and such don't damage the wooden shelves. And that's really cheap. $8 from Home Depot or a hardware store, and you get enough for hundreds of keyboards. But the problem with that is when you put in that layer of rubber at the bottom of the case, it makes it sound more dull because you're blocking a little bit of the switch sound from kind of traveling through the keyboard case, and it reduces flex. So these days there's a lot of keyboards that are plateless, flex cuts, gasket mounting styles, and if you add something into the case, it kind of reduces the flexible typing experience and just feels kind of boring. From there, we had PCB foam, also known as plate foam, which is a piece of foam that goes above the PCB beneath the plate, and very similar to the case foam. It changes the sound and kind of makes it a little bit more dull. Between the plate foam and the case foam, it reduces hollowness and pinginess in the case. These were undesirable sounds and just sound a bit distracting. You lose flexibility in the typing experience. So those weren't that great, right? Recently, after the Jelly epoch came out, we kind of realized that we can use PE foam to make keyboards sound better. So the gasket sound that's kind of creamy, that sound, it can be achieved by adding a layer of PE foam on top of the PCB beneath the switch. This can be found in packing material typically, and it's really easy to source, so you can just add it on. It looks a little bit janky, but it does the job. And what PE foam does is it reduces the frequency range of a keyboard sound. The sounds that may be clacky and high frequency and high pitch, they get brought down to the middle, and the deeper, thockier sounds, it gets brought up to the middle, and it kind of sounds marbly. Now, this is a great achievement if your keyboard is cheap. But if you have a more expensive keyboard, kind of bringing down the sound to that marbly sound may not be what you want. The standard of same is much higher than, let's say, a $50 GK61. So if you do PE foam on that keyboard, sounds great. But if you do PE foam on, let's say, a $500 keyboard, kind of brings it down. It may be a sound that you like, but it's probably a sound that you may get tired of quickly. We're seeing this a lot in the affordable custom mechanical keyboard kits like the QK65 and the Zoom 65. You can have kind of lower tier aluminum cases or lower tier cases in general, and using some PE foam and some case foam, you can elevate the sound so that it keeps up with more expensive keyboards. The other modification that came out was the tape mod, also known as the Tempest mod. So this tape mod is putting tape underneath the PCB, blue masking tape. Yes, I know. The blue masking tape is going to make the keyboard also sound a little bit marbly, but it's a little bit different. Instead of the PE foam kind of reducing the frequency range of the switches, the tape is doing a similar thing, but really you press the switch, plate, PCB, the bottom surface of the apparatus is really now tape. So if the sound is being blocked by this layer of tape and it finishes or terminates, you don't really hear the sound of the case anymore, right? So if your keyboard case is cheaper, sounds like, but now you don't have to hear the case anymore. It's a great modification. It's a little cheat, it's a little hack, but like I said before, if you're paying $500 for a custom mechanical keyboard in group buy, you probably don't want to pull the case out of the equation. So that's why I don't like that mod either. It makes them sound the same, but no bad case ping, no hollowness, right? So with the release of the Keychron Q1, I believe Keyboard came up with this, or Keyboard discovered it. He realized that if you put tape between the top case and the bottom case, it reduces hollowness and ping. How does this happen? I don't really know how to explain it, but I think it has something to do with the fact that, so when you press a switch in the plate and the apparatus is mounted in the case, whether it be top mount, gasket mount, whatever, the vibration of the top and bottom pieces, metal on metal contact, that's what causes this kind of undesirable pingy and hollowness sound, right? So if we can reduce the amount of contact of metal on metal, maybe we can make the sound better. So that's what the force break mod is. It's breaking the path of the force as you type into the keyboard. I totally made that up, but hopefully it makes sense. So all you do is open up the case and you take electrical tape or masking tape. If you do masking tape, you may want to use 2 layers. If you use electrical tape, there's going to leave some residue, but you can do 1 layer because it's thicker. You put that where the screw holes are. I typically like to do both sides, but you can do one side as well. Try it out yourself and see how it works. You just put it all along the bottom. You can do the top too, but I found that bottom is sufficient. So what that's doing is creating an air gap between the top and bottom, reducing the metal on metal contact, and therefore reducing hollowness and ping. One of the boards that has a great effect on is the keebsforall FBTKL. That keyboard is a little bit more affordable. There's no brass weight, it's just aluminum. It uses kind of like Jane mounting points and Jane plate, which sounds very good, but without the rubber case and dampening layer, it sounds a little bit hollow. But if you use the force break mod, it reduces the hollowness and the pinginess, just a little bit of it, and it just wipes it away. And that's amazing because the force break mod, because there's no tape, there's no P foam, there's nothing in the case to stop the sound from traveling through, it doesn't change the sound signature of the keyboard. So you spent money on this keyboard, you spent money on these switches, and you're going to hear the unique sound characteristics of what you bought, which helps you enjoy the hobby more. I'm personally a sound person, so I really love being able to hear what I spent my hard-earned money on and what I spent my time lubing and really modding and curating for my personal experience. Between all the mods that we came up with, I believe the force break mod is the best one, but it has its limitations. You can only do it on a case that has 2 pieces. So something like the Tofu 60 or a tray mount or a drop-in gummy O-ring board like the Unicorn, if you need that mod, you can't really do anything because there's no metal on metal contact. It's just a single piece of aluminum. In that case, if you really need help, you will consider doing case foam, silicone pouring, PCB foam, and all that. You've heard me talk enough, but before we get into the sound test of the force break mod before and after, and me showing you how to do it, let's talk about the keebsforall market. They're sponsoring this video. How do you buy keyboards safely? Well, keebsforall is trying to solve that problem by creating a keebsforall market where people can list things and people can buy things. And the scary part of this whole buying process is you don't have to deal with a stranger. Keebsforall will receive the seller's goods, verify that they are indeed what the seller is selling, and release the funds from the buyer after it's verified. So the benefit for the seller is you don't have to deal with wishy-washy buyers, and for a buyer, you don't have to worry about a seller scamming you and never sending the item because keebsforall is going to verify and ensure that the package is what they describe and the package exists. Right now, keebsforall is doing this service for free, and in the future, the cost of the transaction will not be that much. It will be a nominal fee. I'm really happy that keebsforall is creating this marketplace, hopefully reducing the pain of buying and selling things in this space. Let's get back to the video. I described all this, but let me show you how this works. So with this board is 2 pieces. It's screwed, sandwiched in, very standard mounting style. All you gotta do is unscrew the bottom. Once you get all that taken apart, you can see that there's a place where the top piece and the bottom piece meet together. That's where you're gonna put your tape. All you do is cut little pieces of electrical tape and then place them with tweezers or your hands. And then all you gotta do is close up the case. No cutting of shelf liner, no adding polyfill, nothing crazy. Once you close it up, screw it, but don't screw too tightly because the goal is to create an air gap. If you tighten it too much, you just squish the tape and pretty much cancel out any work that you did to reduce the hollowness and ping. Now let's listen to the sound test that I recorded prior to the force break mod. And now listen to how it changes after the force brake mod. It is a world of difference, and like I said, it doesn't change the sound of the keyboard. You don't just hear foam, you don't just hear tape, you don't hear P foam, you actually still hear the sound of the keyboard. I personally like this because it's still kind of fixing the design of the keyboard, but it doesn't feel like it is as much of a crutch as case foam or plate foam. With those two things, it reduces hollowness, but really makes the sound of a keyboard dull. And I'm a sound guy, so having a keyboard sound boring is probably my worst nightmare. But that's it. That's all I wanted to show you today because I mentioned the force brake mod a lot, but I never created a video explaining what it is. I want to thank keebsforall for sponsoring the video again. I want to thank everyone in the community for constantly supporting me and motivating me to keep making content for you all. Hopefully you learned something today, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.